Good morning, everybody. This is Walk the Dog with Riot Mort, and it is Monday at 6 a.m. And it is very foggy and cool out, but I'm back home. It's nice and quiet. All I hear are birds chirping. No lawn blower, no leaf blower. So feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good to be home. Let's see here. Patch on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely, even I've been playing a good amount on this patch, and I'm ready to move on. But that's the thing with the auto battler genre too, is even in unless the meta is like really, really good, 2 weeks is a long time. So, and if you play, 30, 40 games in a single patch, it's a lot. I don't think I've played that many. Well, I guess if you count stream, I have. So, yeah. So I can finally talk about the curveball. The curveball being that, Riot. I mean, you guys already heard the news. I'm not going to bore you again, but basically, this is my last week on TFT for a little bit. I work 4 days this week, wrapping things up, kind of helping the team prep the final for fun patch, prep any set 15 stuff I can help them with, and then summer break, and then I'm off to solve some different design problems. I'll be back. Like I said, the current plan is 3 months. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So yeah. All right, we have questions. Ooh, there's a deer. Hi, deer. We've seen a lot of new younger deer, so that's a little baby deer. All right, so I have 4 questions today, but I'm going to go in backwards order. Because the first question is, how do you feel about the change? How do you feel about, this curveball, if you will? And the answer is pretty mixed, actually. And that's the thing. I've always been honest with you guys, so I'm going to be very honest and transparent about this. On the one hand, I think it's a pretty amazing opportunity. There's always the worry that when you do something for so long, and I've been on TFT for 6 years now, there's a worry that you sort of become a one trick, right? And it's like, well, Mort's not actually a good designer. He's just a good TFT designer. He can't actually design games. And it's interesting, too, because I've learned in this industry, a lot of people are pretty specialized. And I've tried to make sure that I'm not. After 11 years of puzzle games for Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I was really worried. And in fact, even when Riot hired me, they were like, we don't know if this guy can do anything but little puzzle games. Thankfully, I proved that wasn't the case. But it's always nice to refresh that, no, I'm just a good game designer, not just a good puzzle designer or strategy designer or whatever. And so the problem I'm solving is pretty outside my normal wheelhouse. So it's a good opportunity to prove that. Also, the fact that I was asked, they came to us and were basically like, we think Mort should solve this problem. It's pretty cool. So like I said, it's a really good opportunity. And if I solve this problem well, that'll continue to make a name for myself a little bit. So, especially because one of the things I've talked about before is that, I'm never getting promoted again. As far as on TFT, I'm as high as I can go. Anything higher requires less working on the game and more working on the business. But if I start doing stuff like this, who knows? Maybe maybe there's more for me beyond that. So, hi, Bunny. So that's exciting. It's also, get to work with some different people, mix things up a bit, which will be good. So, yeah, that's cool. And I mean, let's be real. They always say absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? So 3 months away from working on TFT, maybe I'll come back and just be like, oh my God, I love this game even more now. I never want to leave again. Who knows? So like I said, there's definitely some positives, but I'll also say I'm nervous. 6 years is a long time, and I've always felt like I'm a key piece of the puzzle. I'm just one piece, don't get me wrong. Everyone is just one piece, and it's a whole team of people that make things happen. But I always felt like I was a key piece. And, this is where my mental, look, I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone has imposter syndrome to some extent, if they care deeply. And I've definitely thought this through in a weird way where it's like, okay, let's say I leave and it goes perfectly. Like they realize 3 months without Mort and everything goes flawlessly and they don't need me, right? Like there is something a little scary about like, did I train people out of my own job and now they don't need me and I come back and they're just like, we're good. We'll be fine. We don't need you around. And that's kind of, and it might not be true. And I think if you asked anyone on the team, they'd be like, no, we'd still love you to have you do these other things, But there's insecurities there. I won't lie. But on the other flip side, let's say it goes horribly. I leave and things go crappy and whatever. Well, that's also bad, right? It's like, does that mean I'm incapable of training people? Does that mean the game's too hard? Does that mean we've made a game that, requires a specific mindset that's way too narrow? Like, that's also not great. So it's like, there's a part of me that's like, no matter what outcome happens, it looks not great. Now, I guess, obviously, the most ego reassuring outcome would be it goes okay, but worse without me, but not so bad that but that's selfish. What I want is the game to go well. What I want is for all the people I've been training to do well and step up, and that'd be great. So, but yeah, there's some nervousness there. There's, plus just as a player, and then I guess one other part is I'll say is that there's some upcoming TFT stuff that I'm really, really excited about. And that means I won't be helping steer it for a few months. And so I have some nervousness that I'll come back and it'll be like, wait, what happened? Why did we change this or what happened? And I don't want to come back to that either. I don't think that will happen, but again, these are just normal human fears to change, right? This is why humans are change averse, is we think through these things and we're like, but what if, right? And your logical brain has to stop yourself and go, no, it's fine, and break down the outcomes and sort of go, it'll be fine. But, you ask, so that's kind of how I'm feeling. So we'll see. I think it's funny, patch rundowns, and by the way, I've said this before, but just in case, credit to Skara. Skara was the original patch rundown person. And I remember briefly asking him, I'm like, hey, would you mind? Because he stopped doing them for a little bit after he did them. And I was like, do you mind if I do some of these? I think it'd be useful. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. But credit to Skara. If Skara hadn't started them, I never would have done them. And then I did them for 4.5 years. It's funny. Looking good. If you want a good laugh, go look at the first set 2 rundown I did that's recorded. It looks pretty bad nowadays, but yeah. So anyway, we'll see. So, all right, now on to actual questions. All right. What are your thoughts about the connection between mana generation and attack speed? Okay. What I should tell you here is, ask me again in a month. That's what I should tell you. Because this is definitely a thing we've been looking at. And we're not exactly pleased, right? If you have a caster right now, what is the difference between Shojin and Ginsu's? It's a math problem. It's not really clear. If you have a Zyra caster, what's better, Shojin or Ginsu's? And the answer is, pretty obvious in the sense that Ginsu's is worse for the first 10 seconds of the fight. And then Ginsu's is better. But that's weird. The other thing is that if you're an auto attacker, say Zeri, it's sort of weird that hey, when you have 100% attack speed, not only do you do double damage with your autos because you're attacking twice as fast, but you cast twice as fast. You know, it's basically, for some champions, like physical champions, attack speed is like literally a double multiplier. Whereas for casters, excuse me, for casters, not so much. You know, casters, you have the animation time of your cast, and so attack speed ends up being worse. And it's very unintuitive. It's very confusing. We don't like it. This has been one of those things that's been around since set 1. It creates a lot of problems. And like I said, it's very unintuitive. Right? One of the other ones is like, we dealt with this a lot in set 12, is when I really broke down this system. But one of the things I hated was we had attack casters, and you can go back and look in like preset 12, where we had attack casters who would do, their spell would be like 250% of their AD. But what that meant was that their auto attacks were actually like 70 or 80% of their output, and their spell was only 20% of their output. And the reason that was bad is because you'd have these attack casters that the game was telling you to put Shojin on, but Shojin was actually terrible because it wasn't enhancing your autos, it was just getting you back to that weak spell. Which is why, fast forward from like set 12 Namdi, you can see this on Kindred now, it's like some of these spells are like 600% AD, right? It's like you want most of the damage to be the spell, so that placing items like Shojin on a Kindred is a good thing. But even then, you know, make Kindred a rapid fire, that's almost just as good, you know? And so, yeah, that inherentness that, like, it's put Shojin in a weird spot especially, but also blue buff and things like that. Is it, hi, another bunny. Mono generation and attack speed are so similar that it ends up just being weird, and most players don't even understand it. What they do is they just wait for the data to tell them what to do, and they go, oh yeah, don't put Shojin on Morgana because data says so and Delta bad. You know, versus an actual deeper understanding of the implication, or willing to spreadsheet out the math or something like that. So the TLDR is I don't feel great about it, but slight spoiler, ask me again in a month, you know. This is something we're taking pretty seriously, and there might be some changes coming up. We'll see. We'll see. Don't tell anyone. Don't get me in trouble. No, but there, like I said, there's some stuff coming that will make sense. So we'll talk about it as it gets closer. But yeah, there you go. How much expectation is there for rerolling traits like Anima Squad, Black Rose, other summons, etc.? Okay, so this one's a bit of an annoying question. Not that you asked it, but like, I don't think we've ever actually gotten this right. So when we first started doing summons, there was this problem where you throw in, 3 1-star copies of the champion to activate the trait, and the trait is really, really powerful, right? It's like, here's this 1000 HP Scion that's doing work. And back in the day, especially for like Innovator in set 6, it was sort of like, yeah, that's a lot of power. And if you get them early, they're really, really good. This is why the Innovator augment that gave you 2 emblems was so good, right? It was like on 2-1, you could be level 5 and have 5 Innovator. And because that thing was balanced to be active from like 3-2 to 3-7, you just won every fight, right? And so over time, what we've had to do is create 2 scalars to summon traits. The first one being stage scalar, because the expected output of a trait... Okay, think of it this way. If a trait says do 40% more damage, but you're a 1-star unit, Well, 40% of 1 is not that much. But late game, you're a 2-star unit with 3 items, and 40% of 10 is a lot more damage, right? Essentially, traits are damage multipliers modified of the base. And if the base is bad, then it's okay. But summon traits aren't modifying anything. They're just, here's this thing that does 12 damage. And you're like, well, early game, 12 damage is wild. And late game, 12 damage is pretty bad. So we had to build scalers. One of these scalers was stage scaling. I forget which set we introduced it, but basically what would happen is over time, the summons would get better, right? So it's like, if you get this on stage 2, it's fine, but it's not going to win you the game instantly. But likewise, imagine a 3-piece summon trait gave you a 900 health Scion. 2-1, that's insane. 4-2, 900 health Scion, you blink and it's gone. Right? You are not playing that. So we had stage scaling. And then the second was, again, like 7 1-star units. Because, again, if it's supposed to be a damage multiplier, having it be based off the power of your army made sense. And so we added star level scalers. And so, if somebody has a 5 Anima squad, bad example, but a 5 Scion with a bunch of 1-stars and a 5 Scion with a bunch of 2-stars, I would expect that second Scion to be better. Now, that all made sense, and it made for healthier, balanced summons across the game. But then you have summons that scale up with star level. And the oldest version of this, hilariously enough, is Mech from set 3. Do you guys remember if you were able to 3-star Rumble and Annie and Fizz, you would get the golden Mech. The Mech didn't actually turn golden, but we called it the golden Mech. And its spell went from like 1,000 to like 5,000. And part of this was like, you gave up a 3-star 4 cost, so the power needed to be there. But also it was just a cool fantasy, right? Of like, I 3-star all the mechs, I get the turbo mech, they combine, and that thing's awesome, right? Like, that was cool. Well, summons are the same way, where it's like, there was this fantasy of like, imagine if you had a Black Rose, but you were able to 3-star all the champions. How much health should that Scion have? And when the answer is like, well, he has 800 more health, it's pretty disappointing. It's just like not very fun or exciting. It's not an interesting fantasy. And so, it's there to like reward you, but we also have to be careful that like what you don't want is 3 Black Rose with 3 3-stars versus 5 Black Rose with 5 1-stars. What's the difference, right? Like there has to be a unique balance lever there that's like, okay, well, maybe the 3-piece will have more health if you do the 3 3-stars, but you won't have the extra damage amp that he comes when he damages them, right? And so I think the perfect world of this would encourage both, and I've even tried reroll Anima Squad a couple times early on in the set with like reroll Alawi and Vayne and stuff like that, and you hit like 3 or 4 of the 3-stars and then you level up to 7. But the problem is early on in the set, if you go back and look at the patch notes, there was a time I like buffed it. But early on in the set, you would do all that, and it was like your Anima weapon, which would deal like 5,000 damage in a fight, was doing 10% more damage. So it was like you jumped through all that hoop for 500 more damage. That's not very good. It's not very good at all. So I do want us to get to a world where both are possible and that reroll fantasy exists. But unfortunately, we haven't got there yet. I don't think we've executed on it very well. I think the best version of this requires some really, really careful considerations. I think, like I said, the mech one where it was like sort of hand-tuned for level 9 was probably the best version of this. I do think there's one coming in the next set that's like kind of, not really. It's different enough. But like I said, I do want us to get to a point where like, you know those YouTube videos where they make the pre-made lobbies? I want to get to a world where they pull off the like summon trait, everything's 3-starred, and you go, wow. You go, that's so cool. And it gives you a dream to like use Prismatic Ticket on, and So that's the hope. But like I said, I don't think we've executed it yet. And so right now it's mostly just there as a balance lever as opposed to making reroll summons viable. So there you go. All right, I got one more question and then I can just jabber. How do we do in-house playtests with 8? How do we handle skill discrepancy and things like that? So this is a tough one. Because I'm going to be honest with you, and if this is a shock to you, welcome to reality. Most of the TFT team are not masters. Most of the TFT team are not platinum, right? Like, I have no need for an artist to be diamond. Like, if they are, cool, but them being diamond doesn't make their art better or worse. I have no need for an engineer to be diamond. It doesn't make their coding any better or worse. Now, there are spots on the team where I need them to be high ranked. I would never hire a live balance designer who's not diamond. Because if you can't hit diamond, you don't really understand the game. And if you don't really understand this game, you can't balance it. So like, let's say we're doing a playtest of Pengu's Party internally, right? It's like the team's working on Pengu's Party. They go, hey team, it's 10 in the morning on Wednesday. Time to do a playtest, form some lobbies. We're not going to be too picky. We're just going to be like, queue up in our internal environments. The queue will pop or form some teams, play the game. And someone might school you, I've had games where we're doing a playtest like that and I get queued up with like 2 QA, an engineer, 2 artists, it's like, uh-oh. And yeah, you kind of stomp them. It is what it is. But a lot of the times it's like what you're looking for is just like not balance reads in those play tests. You're like looking for bugs or was it generally fun? So it's fine. But then we have every morning we have designer play tests. And we've actually split designer play tests into 2 groups. The first group is the sets group. And again, not all my sets designers need to be, masters or anything. But it's like a bunch of gold to emerald players playing against each other. Okay. And then we have our finalization lobby. This is the lobby that Kent and his team run every day. And these are our 8 best players usually playing on the team. Now, when I say 8 best players, no, it's not 8 challengers. It does have folks like Aniko, who has been rank 1, so he's really good. Or, Tim, who's usually sits at Grandmaster every set. Or me when I'm around. I can't join every playtest. But when I'm around, so whatever rank you want to call me. But at the same time, not everyone on that, even in that finalization pod is masters, And so even in that, there's some skill discrepancy. And it's like, hilariously enough, what that can do, by the way, is it can be like, hey, if a Nico plays something and he plays it well, and he goes 8th with it, what happened? Or vice versa, if the one Emerald player in our group wins the lobby pretty easily with a Mr. 100. Hey, big red flag here. Something needs to be taken care of, It does make things harder, but that's the thing. A playtest in TFT, and this is what I actually have to coach my team about. A playtest is a sample size of 1, right? So you play 1 game, and even let's use Nico and Tim, our 2 best players in the lobby, and they go, 1-4. And it's like, well, is it actually the comp's problem? Is the thing, let's say Nico went 4th, Is it because his comp was weak? Or was it because of the variance in the items? Was it the augments? Was it, like TFT is such a complicated game. There's a lot of conditions that could be true. And so if you only look at the results as a method of your balance, you're going to fail miserably. So instead, what I coach the team to do is we all record our playtests, and you go back through the playtest and you look at every single fight before it starts. You pause the game and you're sort of like, how would I expect this fight to go? Right? Assuming two players of equal skill and assuming perfect balance, I look at this board. How should it play out? How would that match my player expectations? And then if it does, if you just look at it and you're like, no, my board's way stronger. If I don't win, this game's bad. And then you stomp them. It's like, great, game's working as intended, right? And on the same side, if you look at the board and you're like, it could be close, or, well, maybe it's an augment diff in this fight. And then you watch and then you get curb stomped. It's like, excuse me, what? What just happened, right? And like, that's a sign to look at that board and watch that fight really intensely and being like, why didn't that match my expectation? What happened this fight that really broke it, right? Are you watching a tank heal too much? And it's like, oh, I would expect that tank to die 12 seconds in, but they're still alive, right? There was a playtest recently where I had a 2-star 4 cost with one item, and because I high rolled it early, I paused the fight, and the enemy board were the same level, and they have a 2-star 1 cost tank with, 2 items. And it's like, well, I would expect this fight to be close, but then you watch the fight and it's like, the tank never died. The tank was still at like 30% health at the end of the fight. And it's like, excuse me? Why? What just happened? Right? And like, that's a good moment to like pause and really analyze. And it's like, that's what we should be doing playtests for, right? It's like anything that's not matching the expectations of the output, so that anytime a player plays our game, they go, wait, that's not fair, right? Like, that's the stuff we're looking for. And so in the end, it doesn't matter who wins the lobby or who gets first or second, but it's just confirming that everything behaved the way you would expect it. Because if everything's behaving the way you expect it, then and only then can you finally use data and go, okay, this comp's overperforming, we can just like 5% nerf it, it's fine, right? Balance becomes easy if everything behaves the way you expect. But that's the thing with TFT, and I've been saying this for 6 years, and I've been complaining about this for 6 years, is the hardest part about balancing TFT is the assumption that it even works the way you expect. So for example, I'll without saying the champions, there was a playtest just literally like last week where I was watching a fight and someone's 2-star 2-cost tank. I was like, wait a minute, he's healing that much? That doesn't look right. This seems off. What's going on here, guys? And, it's funny because in the moment, your initial player reaction is like, well, Mort's just complaining he's losing. It's like, no, I'm pointing out that this doesn't seem like it's behaving the way I would expect it. And if you've been playing TFT for a long time, you can kind of call that out. Now, fast forward, sure enough, after a little investigation, they came back to me and they went, oh yeah, turns out that champion was bugged and healing double. Just saying. That's what a playtest is for. That's how you, despite the skill levels, get really good value out of your playtest. You're not playing to win. You're not playing for that. You're playing to make sure that the game behaves the way you expect. And that's the thing, I'll be blunt with you. A lot of Western devs do not understand. I have seen so many bad playtests where you're just like, you're playtesting to go through the motions, or you're playtesting to get validation from the people you've brought in, which can make you feel good, but it doesn't make your game better, right? If you have a good vision for your product and you know what you're making, a playtest is there to confirm that. And if you find out that's not true, what you need to adjust it. Even working on the Mario versus Donkey Kong series, the amount of playtesting, it's like, try your level. It's funny because I've also seen a lot of devs be like, well, that's QA's job. It's like, no, that's your job as the designer to understand how your game works. Designers need to be the experts on their game. No one should know how your game works better than you at every corner. So, yeah. But yeah, there's some fun stories behind the scenes, by the way. And like I said, you get an eye for it, right? Like, if anything, this is one of my superpowers as a designer, is like my detail-oriented ability to see how everything works and call out, like, my brain. Anyway, there you go. There's playtests. All right, we are reaching the 30-minute mark. I guess we're past the 30-minute mark. Like I said, it's a pretty quiet week for me. I have just a little bit less coaching, a little less coaching, set 15 stuff. Set 15 stuff, final patch. It's only a 4-day week work for me because I worked the holiday last week, so I get Friday off this week. Kind of wrapping things up on TFT. I have an interview later for one of our other positions that are open. And yeah, I'll get through the week, and that'll be that. So we'll see. Obviously, I'm still going to be doing these, by the way. If just in case anyone had any doubt, I'm still doing Walk the Dog during my time. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to talk about the design problems I'm working on, but, So, okay. That's it for me. I'll go see if anyone's awake, and I'm going to get to work. All right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.